If even I get confused on this issue, I'm sure you dog owners will as well. I've been reading many contradicting articles about the fact that you cannot reinforce fear, but the reason I seem to get into so many debates about this topic is because there's such a fine line between interpreting what you think is happening or backing what you know with scientific facts. Fear is an emotion, so you cannot reinforce something that is used as an aversive, but you can encourage it to keep happening again though. The fear may never get worse, but you're just harnessing the fear and never actually solving the problem and desensitising your dog to what's going on. The argument is that if you ignore the fear, you could actually make it worse. But surely doesn't that depend on how reactive that dog is? If your dog is in danger, then yes, do whatever you feel that you should do just to stop your dog from hurting itself. But you cannot use calming your dog down as the only form of solving that problem. You'll need to work with your dog in between these times to desensitise him to what's going on. You need to change the association that the dog is having, find out where the behaviour actually started and get to the bottom of the problem. If you purely just comfort the dog, it's not actually going to make that fear go away. Like one person was happy to explain to me, if you know your dog's body language very, very well, and you know that all he needs is a little rub on the head and then say to him to continue, that's perfectly fine. If you can read that's going to work, then that's perfectly fine. But what you don't want is your dog to constantly come to you every single time. One of the things that people say is, well, I feed my dog, I keep it warm, I give it a home, so why should I deny it the comfort that it needs when it's scared? Now I find it very hard to comment on this because to me it does sound like you're putting your human emotions on a dog. A dog doesn't feel that it's your place to comfort him when he's scared. The only reason that they get used to this is because that's what you're doing and they think that's normal. I feel that a happy dog is an independent dog, one that you know comes to you and you can give it affection, comfort, whatever you want to do, but it doesn't rely on that. Because it's fair enough giving your dog comfort when it's scared when you're home, but what's going to happen when you're not home one day? There are so many different scientific studies now that show that dogs do have similar emotions to humans, but that seems to be the argument that a lot of people use to say, you know, well, dogs are a lot more like us than we think. But they're not us, they're not human beings, they don't have the link between the brain that we do. You cannot explain to your dog that what you're doing is just merely comforting him. You can't explain that there's no reason to panic. The very fact that you are comforting him is kind of showing him that there is something to worry about in the first place, otherwise you wouldn't be changing your behaviour. If the dog heard some fireworks and it was a very low state of anxiety, basically the dog would look at you, and if you were continuing to do what you were doing and you weren't making a fuss, the dog would probably settle back down and realise there's nothing to worry about. I certainly wouldn't put everything down that I was doing to go comfort him every time he was scared, because it would just cause them to come to you every single time. So no, you can't reinforce the fear, it won't get any worse, but you can encourage him to keep coming back to you every time he's scared. It's all about giving him a better coping mechanism. It's all about changing and desensitising him to what he's scared about. A lot of the time it's really hard to use human examples about dogs because there are some things you can relate, but there are some things you can't. So don't take it too literally when I use this example. One of the examples I like to use is the fact that when a toddler was to fall over, their parents are encouraged to not make a fuss of it, so that it encourages them not to make a fuss next time. You're not denying them the comfort that they deserve. You are still comforting them, but if you were to make so much of a fuss out of it, they will learn that A, it may get them attention, and B, that to make more of a fuss than needed. I'm not saying you don't go over there and have a look to see if they're okay, but you have to be very careful because they'll learn to panic when there's nothing to panic about. But the thing is, you cannot explain to a dog that this is what you're doing. Going over there and giving them comfort, you can't actually explain to them that you're just telling them that it's going to be okay. How are you to know that that's what they're thinking? So my conclusion is, no, you cannot reinforce fear, but you definitely can encourage it. And if you were to literally just comfort them every single time they were scared, you wouldn't ever improve. If you do some desensitisation training in between these times that they're scared, you'll help the dog to actually realise that there's nothing to worry about. You can give your dog a new way of coping with it. Somebody told me that they let their dog go into their crate, and as soon as he goes into his crate, he stops shivering. The good thing about that is when she's no longer home, he can still go into his crate and comfort himself and calm down without her being there. If the dog is about to pout out the door, then yes, of course comfort them, but please don't be fooled that this will fix the problem, because you will find that you'll be having to comfort them every single time. Please remember that I am only studying canine behaviour. Everything that I say is backed up with books, discussions, studies that I've read, and my own opinion on things as well. I'd love to discuss with you your opinion, so if you want to comment below on how you feel, that would be brilliant, and it will really help me to understand further as well. I hope you've all enjoyed my video, and I hope you now have a better understanding of what I'm explaining. If you don't agree with it, that's perfectly fine. We've all got our own opinions. I just hope that I've explained it well. I look forward to hearing what you've all got to say, and thank you for listening.